Yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to the CIO's challenge. They've got to figure out uh, what moves to make at the right time. And we all have these challenges from an executive point perspective as well. And I think these challenges have been showing up in a variety of stories that we've been looking at across kind of financial AI, work management, uh, capabilities where foundationally the way we manage technology is changing and we're not necessarily keeping up very well. One of the things I was thinking about is last week, there were two smaller shows other than Google I/O that I was tracking pretty tightly. One was Alteryx Inspire, an analytics event, as well as Planful Perform. And Planful is a planning and budgeting company. And what I found interesting is that in the planning and budgeting world, the software there keeps getting more and more detailed in terms of being able to manage demand, understand cost, to be able to track transactions on a very specific and real-time basis, and be able to provide the financial office with basically real-time understanding of where the company is at any given time. And I feel that that is a capability that is often not translating to IT budgeting and planning and forecasting. And I worry about that because although IT tends to do a good job with things like observability and real-time performance from perhaps a network perspective, IT does not do as good of a job in providing guidance from a financial perspective. And it hasn't gotten much better over the years, despite the technology that has been come into place.
I was going to say, I think you're being very kind about that. It has been, I don't know if it's just the technical orientation of the folks that tend to lead IT organizations or what, but it is quite interesting to me how big of a gap this really is. There's a practice called TBM, Technology Business Management, that was championed by a company called Aptio that was recently acquired by IBM. I think they did a great job, and they got great market share, and they were very successful. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't like we saw this massive movement around it. And they were all about trying to capture this data and build a bill of IT. We've seen things like FinOps come up and try to get better at dealing with things like cloud management. I am hopeful that we're finally. You mentioned observability. I'm hopeful that we're finally on the cusp of these things starting to come together, where IT organizations are recognizing, and maybe because of the dynamic nature of cloud pricing and costing, that they have to do a better job of linking performance and cost and the underlying infrastructure and architecture of their systems. And so hopefully, I think we're seeing some movement. So Logic Monitor, I'm not sure if this is actually public yet. Okay, well, I think it is. I hope so. They're introducing some new services around cost optimization. There's a company that I've worked with called Galileo that does a whole bunch of work around linking cost to underlying infrastructure components. I think we're starting to see this evolve, but it is still woefully inadequate. And I would argue, most IT organizations have little understanding of how all those numbers fit and how they link to the underlying services they're providing.
Yes, I was just talking to HPE OpsRamp earlier today, where they want to bring observability and cost management closer together. And I'm reminded of, so 20 years ago, I managed telecom bills. And the things we tended to bring together were call accounting, so we could get call-specific views of what was happening. We wanted to have some sort of network behavior information to have some idea of network performance and whether any of our network elements were being maxed out. And then we had the actual cost aspects, managing circuits and phone lines, and then being able to assign them to specific people and departments and projects and whatever. And honestly, I think that structure of IT performance, business use case, and then actual financial spend that structure hasn't actually changed all that much in terms of being a basic framework for cost management, but we've gotten away from it. And I feel like every 5 or 10 years, like somebody discovers a new technology and then discovers a new way to manage the cost. So we did it with enterprise mobility. We did it with software as a service. We've done it with public cloud, where everybody suddenly says, wow, I discovered that I can optimize these costs by getting rid of zero usage capabilities. It's like, yes, just like we did 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago.
Right.
Yes. Um, and for some reason, it takes us another 5 to 10 years after a technology starts really coming into vogue to put the same IT cost and expense and planning frameworks that we previously used for everything else, even though finance and inventory management and basic performance tracking haven't really changed.
But, well, the thing that I'm sort of hopeful, so obviously what Planful is doing is sort of out of my wheelhouse. But what I do think is hopeful about what they're doing, and what I think others in the space are doing, is that I think it's, driving a deeper sense of discipline about having that granularity of cost management. And what I'm hoping what that does is sort of create some downward pressure, because the big issue, frankly, has always been that IT budgets were just too hard to decipher, that people didn't understand the underlying technology. It was very difficult to link up the direct consumption of the service to the cost. Well, even if you're not fully in the public cloud, everything is going now towards more of a private cloud type model. So we're getting much more consumption orientation, even on on-prem and traditional environments. And so it's getting easier and easier to do that. And I think, add in the layers of observability, they're getting much more fine-grained controls of exactly what is happening in the environment, and then add layers of AI, whether that's in the form of AI ops or other elements of it, that we can now start automating all of this. I'm very hopeful that we get to this point, because it is really hard to say you have a disciplined approach to managing the function of IT if you do not bring cost into the equation. So, I'm very hopeful that this is maybe, finally the watershed moment we've been talking about for 20 or 30 years, where we're going to cross that divide. But I guess we'll see.